Good afternoon, Rotarians, friends, and guests. I'm Hannibal B. Johnson. It's my privilege as president to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. Much like the great game of basketball, leadership is a team sport. Talking about success on the court, top NBA coach Greg Popovich explained, it's not about any one person. You've got to get over yourself and realize that it takes a group to get this thing done. So our motto, Service Above Self, reinforces that point. As a member of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, you have a village supporting you as you serve, and together we change lives. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment now to silence your cell phones. Thank you. And a special thanks to Tom Wolfe for our pre-meeting musical interlude. Tom? So let's begin our program with the invocation from Sarah Fry, followed by a song and pledge from DJ Morrow, and visitor introductions from past president Ed Monette.
Please pray with me. Dear God, thank you for this fellowship as we gather as Rotarians in service to our community and to one another. As springtime arrives in Oklahoma and we weather the storms that sometimes arrive from your skies, we ask you to give us the wisdom and peace of knowing that the storms from your skies and the storms in our lives offer us the opportunity for renewal, for seeing more clearly, and for welcoming the flowers we didn't even know were under the dirt. We ask you to open our minds and our hearts for the needed changes in each of our lives this spring. Bless this food that it may nourish our bodies, and bless the hands that made it. We offer you thanks and praise now and always, and all God's people said, amen.
Good afternoon. Please join me in singing God Bless America, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, what could wrong? God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone, to the Rotary Club of Tulsa, the only place to be on Wednesday at lunchtime. On this day in history, Sandy Koufax, for the second time, struck out 18 batters in a single baseball game. And I hope I don't strike out when I ask Coach Cole to sign my jacket. All right. That'd be good right there, under the OU.
Strikeout.
All right. All right. Coach Switzer and Coach Cole. This is like double priceless. All right. Oh, thank you. All right. Back to the business at hand. We want to welcome all our guests today to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. Everyone's important, but some super important guests. We have Coach Matilda Mossman, TU women's basketball coach. If you'll stand briefly. Some area basketball coaches and athletic directors are here. We have Jay Biddles, the Bixby Executive Director, Sarah Kling with Bixby, Andrew Beam with Bixby. From Sapulpa, we have Ricky Bruner, the head boys basketball coach. We have Rod Hall with Sapulpa and Josh Littlebear with Sapulpa. So we're glad you all could join and hear Coach today. Now, for visitors with their Rotary hosts, if you would stand briefly and so we can recognize you, we will hold our applause for this group until the end. Ifoma Okoro is here with Michelle Place, who chose not to sit together. Okay. Steve Hobbs is a guest of John O'Connor, and John decided not to show today. Okay. Daniel Reagan has with him Thomas Carlson with the Carlson Development Group. That's how you're supposed to do it. You sit together, you stand up together. Bill Gaddis has his wife Karen today. Karen Neal brought Jim Campos. Scott Philstrup has someone we are going to meet again in a moment, but John Hamill. Richard Holmes brought Ashley Cutchall. Cindy Salter has 3 guests. We have Sarah Beam, Heather Buffington, and Patty Harwell. Chuck Wilson has a couple, Luann Triplett and Chuck Sullivan. We have 3 Rotaractors. We have Brian Flynn, Kevin Flynn, and Cole Adamson. Let's give them all a rounding applause. And we also sent out a memo again that no other Rotary clubs could attend, and they followed instructions. So no visiting Rotarians today.
Thanks, Sarah, DJ, and past President Ed. At this time, please help me welcome Rotarian Scott Philstrup with a new member introduction. Scott.
Thank you, President Hannibal. It's a great honor and distinction to introduce John Hamill. He's a freelance writer, author, and PR extraordinaire. Most recently, John has co-authored the book Voices of Oklahoma with John Erling, doing the history of the great Tulsans. And he has also done recently 4 books on Oklahoma. Voices of Oklahoma, as mentioned, Tulsa, the Great American City, Visions, Mission, Loyalty, the Lowback Taylor, and Tulsa Historical City Hall. He also was a major contributor to the great book, Tulsa Spirit. Now, John has very great variety of activities during his ongoing career. Prior to being director of public information for Tulsa Public Schools, he was the editor of Tulsa People. And his journalism media includes a vast array of television, KTUL, writer at Tulsa Tribune, and he was a host of a classical music and jazz on KCMA. He had classical music in the morning and jazz at night. In addition, he was a real innovator with a new television concept, 24-hour news downtown Tulsa, with Beth Ringel, and he appeared with her at a Rotary meeting, and he was news director there. Now, earlier on, John was PR manager at Williams, and that's when I first met him when I first moved to Tulsa in 1974. He later on became head of community investor relation at Facet Purelator and was instrumental in the successful merger. John is a former director of Junior Achievement and was a volunteer for several years there. And an amazing thing about him is he's also taught journalism for 24 years at Tulsa University. Now, I want exactly. He's got the appropriate tie on today. So, I want to mention that John has 2 degrees from the Northwestern University in Evanston, and John mentioned that Northwestern has beat OU the last couple times they played football. So, I'd like to also say that we all have a little fact about John Hamill, and this is really interesting. We all know he has a love of music, but John plays piano on Sundays at First Presbyterian Church in Chelsea. And even, I think, more impactful is that he routinely plays a program called Stories Behind Songs, where he plays the piano and tells the story of each selection. And he's done that to over a dozen retirement homes from Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Bartlesville. It's a great honor and pleasure to introduce my friend, new Rotarian, John Hamill.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome, John. It's Sarge time, so let's welcome Daniel Gomez. Daniel.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. You might recall last week that Brenda donated $200 last week for my little bucket trick, and I asked for some additional donations. We pulled in $945.
That's great.
Most of them were, $20, which was how many steps I estimated I took. But we had a couple big ones I want to note. Corey Nickerson and Jerry Strange both did matches, $200, and Ken Snoke did $100. And everybody else, I've said it over and over, these little amounts add up. So thank you to everybody, and especially to Brenda. Appreciate it. So Tim Knoll is paying $50 to advertise the Rotary Centennial Plaza cleanup, which is Saturday, May 4th, from 8 a.m. to noon. It's obviously a pretty big deal that we keep this plaza looking great. This is routine maintenance. Tim just needs some help. So for $50, I think we can pitch in some time. All right. So thanks, Tim. So Brian is paying $75 to announce that he has taken a new position at the Tulsa Garden Center at Woodward Park. His title is Program Director for the Outdoor Classroom, and the mission is to provide experiential STEM learning for older elementary students and teachers, and they do this outdoors. They bring textbooks to life back in the classrooms, and they serve underserved and marginalized community. He's designated this for Celia Clinton program. So congratulations, Brian. It sounds like an awesome program, and I'm sure they're under good leadership now. So thanks, Brian. Eddie Barclay's Rotary anniversary is this week. He's donated $100, and this is a picture he sent me. I think it's from 2012. And if you read the article, it mentions that he ordered, I think, 2 snowplows, and people laughed at him. Is that what it was? And then we had record snowfall that year. So he's clairvoyant, and we're happy to have you, Eddie, and thank you. Dell is donating $72 for his birthday, which was April 11th. Happy birthday, Dell, and thank you. We really appreciate it. Joe Moran, $100 for his birthday, April 27th. No cat video this time, unfortunately, but happy birthday to Joe. So this one is interesting. We're going to raise some money this way. Apparently, this started as an idea at one of the tables right over here. But the idea was that a lot of people will show pictures of their kids and grandkids on special occasions. And it was brought up, what about the dogs? I mean, a lot of people, the dogs are as important as our kids. So this is what came in this week. Luann gave $25 for her dog, Ellie McLovin Buellinger. Matt Davis has 2 of these. There's Tuxedo. and Spat, and Tiffany Egdorf with her handsome Hammond. So the idea here is that if anybody thinks that their dog is cuter than this, give us some money, I'll put the picture up, and we'll have a vote later. I think it's a good way to raise some money. As we've already seen, 20, 25 bucks adds up fast. And on that note, you know, I carried the bucket down there. I'm capable of a lot of other parlor tricks. So if anybody has any ideas, there's not a lot I won't do for $1,100, all right? So thank you, Rotarians. Thank you for everything, and see you next week.
Thanks, Daniel. Special side mic announcement from Tricia Kirkser regarding Rotary Youth Exchange. Tricia.
Thank you, President Hannibal. Greetings, everybody. Okay, I was up here a month ago, and my phone did not ring off the hook like I really was hoping it would, so you get to listen to me again. My announcement is concerning the fact that we as a club have committed to bring in a boy from Taiwan who will arrive in August, and we have to find 3 host families for him. So we need to step up. Any of you who've been able to interact with Lise this year, our student from France, she's been delightful. All of the kids are. So we need you to be a host family, but we really need you to sign up now because we have to send him a guarantee form, which allows him to get an appointment with the State Department, which allows him to get a visa, which allows him to get a ticket, which allows him to get here by August. So you get the urgency. But I don't really want to talk administrative. I want to talk the joy of hosting. If you have ever hosted, just raise your hand real quick. It doesn't have to be our program, any youth exchange, any program. Talk to these people at your tables. Ordinary moments become extraordinary in your life, and you think you're helping our club and you're helping the student by hosting, but the joy, you end up helping yourself. I'll give you 3 little examples. I remember taking a walk one day after school with the boy I was hosting, and I live over by 11th and Yale. Not a fancy neighborhood, right? Most of the cars are parked on the street because we converted our little garages to living rooms. And his comment is, such a wide avenue to go on a stroll after work. A wide avenue. I mean, it's like everything is perspective, right? Or the day my daughter came home when we were hosting, she was probably third grade geography quiz. So proud of herself because she was the person who knew, like a spelling bee, geography bee, that if you are from Brazil, you don't speak Spanish, you speak Portuguese, because we were hosting Lucas that year. So it just became very special. She was so proud. And then my favorite, which happens every year, and even if you take your student out to Chick-fil-A, Arby's, whatever, right? And it's their first time, and before you leave, you say, oh, why don't you go fill up your drink before we leave? And they look at you, you're like, yeah, free refills. And they're like, what? And you get to explain free refills to them. I know they love it. And it becomes like this extraordinary thing. So put some joy in your life. I'm serious. You really will not regret it. It's very easy. You can be single, retired. You can have kids. It's really easy to add one more little person to your house. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Our Rotarian of the day is Brenda Melancon. Brenda is the Vice President of Operations for Secure Agent Software, a company that develops computer software for Fortune 500 companies. Brenda, a member of the Rotary Club of Tulsa for 16 years, currently serves as chair of the Long Range Planning Committee. She's also served as chair of the board, director at large, international service director, and past president of MSNI. A member of the International Projects Committee for 12 years, Brenda has been an integral part of our Nicaragua Water Well program. She's a Paul Harris Fellow, Club Foundation Fellow, MSNI Ambassador, and Rotary Club of Tulsa benefactor. Please help me welcome Rotarian Brenda Melancon.
Thank you, President Hannibal. It is my distinct pleasure and privilege to introduce to you our speaker, Sherry Cole. In 1996, Sherry accepted the position as head coach of the OU women's basketball program. She had her work cut out for her when she arrived, as there was not one recruiting folder in the file cabinet. In the beginning, they won very few games, and she was discouraged, but she knew she was building a foundation, building the family atmosphere that's the bedrock of her program, and in 2002, the OU women went to a national championship. She took a declining program and made it one of the top programs in the nation. Coach Cole has been to the Final Four many times, but just as importantly, she's emphasized academics and has had 127 academic All-Americans. That progress and consistent success has elevated Coach Cole to elite status in college basketball, as well as a spot in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. But long before she was a Hall of Famer, the community of her hometown of Hylton, Oklahoma, declared August 26, 2001 as Sherry Cole Day. Coach Cole's legacy will not be about championships or how she played the game, but the people she produced that made a difference in this world, who mastered the game of life. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to one of the fan favorite IVA keynote speakers, Sherry Cole.
Oh, my. You got the many hairstyles and the many facial expressions throughout the career there. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Brenda. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you today. I noticed that table number 3 for the Oklahoma State Cowboy graduates is left open this morning. I don't blame them for not coming. I had all kinds of crazy jokes for them. So, all right, that's good. You know, 23 years ago when I got the job at the University of Oklahoma, I didn't know you had to be so good at limbo. You know, when we first started off, the bar of expectation for our program was so low, you couldn't lay on your belly and slither underneath it. And then we won 15 games, we won 18 games, and then you get up where you can actually limbo over under the thing. And then we go to the national championship game in 2002, and then we go to back-to-back Final Fours, and that bar of expectation is so high, you can't even jump and touch it. And this past season, that bar of expectation was so high, and the gap between where we were and it was enormous. And I want you to know that nobody is more bothered by that gap than we are. It's not okay for us to finish 7th in the Big 12. It's not okay to win 8 games. It's not okay to not go to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 19 years. It's not okay. We're bothered by it. But what we're not bothered by is the expectation. We absolutely love that you expect for us to compete for championships. You expect for us to not just be in the NCAA tournament, but to win in the NCAA tournament and advance to the Final Four and ultimately to a national championship. We are honored by that. And so I want to say to you today, keep holding that bar of expectation high. We're going to hop up and grab it, all right? Our job, thank you. Our job at the University of Oklahoma, at every college campus in this country that's involved with athletics, our job is to grow and develop young people. It's to help our people grow as people and players in the pursuit of championships. And when you say that, it can sometimes feel a little bit counterintuitive. If you think about the world of sports right now and the role that it plays in our society, it can feel almost antithetical. For example, how many of you watched the Thunder game last night? Raise your hand really high. Okay, we got at least half the room. And if you didn't watch it, the first thing you did this morning was turn on and check the score, right? That game finished last night about midnight. You all had to get up and go to work this morning. Maybe you worked out before you went to work, but it was so important to you, you wanted to know what happened. Such is the role of sports in America. And you know what? If Damian Lillard doesn't make a 30-foot three, literally at the buzzer, we feel completely different today about the Oklahoma City Thunder than we do right now, because Damian Lillard made a 30-foot, highly contested three at the close of the game. One shot, maybe 3 seconds of play, an outcome completely changes the way we feel about a thing. That is sport. That is sport. And so when we put all our time into developing elite athleticism, you got to wonder sometimes at what price, at what cost. And that is our dilemma. In college sports, our job is to, yes, create elite performers. Yes, to develop and drive and dedicate for excellence in our craft. But it is also to develop balanced human beings, most of whom will not go into professional athletics, most of whom who will infiltrate our communities and become exactly who you are in the chairs right now. They will be leading our businesses. They will be your employers or your employees. And our job at the collegiate level, our space, is to work on the development of human beings while simultaneously trying to increase our elite performance. You know, here's what's happening in the space that we have right now. The kids that we get at 18, 19 years old, here's what's happening, and you'll recognize this because you get many of these traits as they come out of college and into your workforce. You know what? They're indecisive. We send them to the weight room and we want them to get stronger. We want their hamstrings to get stronger. We want their quadriceps to get stronger. We want their biceps to get stronger. One of the muscles that's underdeveloped with our young people is the ability to decide. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. What happens to them from a very young age? They're inundated with options of things, and so they flit from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, because they have so many things at their fingertips. The evidence of that happens in the transfer rate on our college campuses right now. There's such a thing that's called a transfer portal. Doesn't that sound kind of magical, like a spaceship of some kind? We think it's definitely alien. There is a transfer portal in which if you want to change schools, you enter your name into the transfer portal, and the moment that you go in, then everybody in the country, every college coach, can know that you're up for re-recruitment. At one point, a couple of weeks ago, there were over 6,000 names in the transfer portal. In the sport of women's basketball, there have been as many as 630. This morning, I believe it was 527. Some have gone in, been picked up somewhere else, and now they've gone off. But at 650 women's basketball transfers, that is about a player and a half for every program in the country in Division I basketball. When you think about that, what is that except a reflection of an inability to stay committed and be decisive about a thing? One of the other things that we find in today's generation are young people who think that they're connected, but they're less connected than they've ever been, ever in the history of ever. They have all these friends and all these likes, and you know about it. We all use them. We all have the smartphones. We all have social media. But their ability to connect and have an eyeball-to-eyeball conversation is really underdeveloped. They think that they know a lot of people, but they really don't know many people at all. Another thing that we find is that leaders, young leaders, are becoming more and more rare. They yearn, young people say they yearn for individuality, and yet what they seek is the comfort of being like everyone else, blending in. Now, none of this is their fault. This is just the world in which we live. You know what else they are? And this stuff is great. They're incredibly generous, incredibly socially conscious, incredibly creative and smart. So there are all these really good things, and they're coupled with some of these things that are difficult for us to understand. And one of the great things about being a college basketball coach or an athletic coach, teacher, in our college university campuses today is the opportunity to work in that space, to try to connect those dots and fill in those gaps, because we have to teach our young people from where they are. Not where we want them to be. We go find them where they are, and then we help them get to where they want to be. And I don't think that's antithetical at all. I think it's our charge. How do we do that? So how do we serve the two masters of developing an elite athlete and developing a totally balanced human being? Well, one of the ways that we try to do that is through the alignment of our culture in both our beliefs and our behaviors. Our mission for Oklahoma women's basketball is to play in such a way so that people are compelled to watch and thus inspired to do whatever they do in a better way. Say that again. Our mission is to play in such a way so that people are compelled to watch and thus inspired to do whatever they do in a better way. Here's why that's important. See, it doesn't have anything to do with the outcome. So our culture is teaching our young people that playing to the best of your ability, doing things in the right way, is what you strive for. Now, you know what happens? Most of the time, if we play in such a way so that people are compelled to watch, and they walk to their cars saying, I want to be a better teacher tomorrow, I want to be a better CEO tomorrow. I want to be a better plumber tomorrow. I want to be a better electrician tomorrow. Most of the time when people feel that way when they leave our arena, guess what? We won. That's usually how that works. But in women's basketball, and if we want to have a platform, we got to play in such a way so that people want to watch us. What's the point of a platform if nobody's watching? It's not really a platform by definition. So we've got to do some things that make people not change the channel when they're watching on TV, or make people get dressed and drive to the arena rather than just watching the game on TV or following on their phone. And what is that? We have to connect. We have to play with passion. We have to be united. There has to be something that you feel when you're in the Lloyd Noble Center and you watch our guys play that you can't get in any other way. If that's the case, you're compelled to watch. And then we play in such a way that inspires you to want to be better at what you do. There's no outcome associated with that. It's a way of behaving. Our purpose is to grow as people and performers in the pursuit of championships. Super, super easy to take either one of those, the growth part as people and players, or the pursuit of championships part and divide it. And then it feels antithetical, but it's not. You can grow as a person and as a performer while pursuing championships. And all of that is a part of our charge. Our process, every single day and all that we do, is to question, wrestle, reach, fall, get up, and repeat. That's what we do. We prize failure. We draw attention to failure. I've even been known to take a piece of tape and mark an X on the floor where a great big blunder happened. Because that's how people learn. If you don't stretch yourself to the edges of your comfort zone, you don't get any better. You play it safe, you don't win championships. You play it safe, you're pretty good all the time and not really good ever. And that means sometimes you have tough years. That means sometimes you have tough moments. And we want our players to understand that that's part of the process on the road to excellence. Now, here's how we try to do that within our practice. This is what this feels like inside of Oklahoma women's basketball. I'll start from a big picture first. We keep our players engaged in the community. From an organizational standpoint, once a month, our players are involved with, we call it a charity of choice, whether it's in Norman or in Oklahoma City. And our thought process there is that over the course of 4 years of a player's career, that hopefully they will find something in their 4 years that will really speak to them, that will touch their heart, something that they want to be involved in wherever they go, wherever they live, once their collegiate athletic days are over. And so some years we work with Aging Services, some years we work with Stevenson Cancer Center, Mary Abbott House, Habitat for Humanity, I could go on. But we want our players to have very versatile experiences. We want them to have diverse opportunities to get involved with people of the community, and ultimately to understand that if you live in a place, you have to give back to a place. That's the only way any place prospers. And so we have regular monthly community service. We also have our student athletes involved in the public schools every week. You know, sometimes you see on the news, the Oklahoma City Thunder went to Reed to such and such elementary school. Well, we go every week, not on Dr. Seuss's birthday only, but every week. And our players have a classroom. They'll have a second grade classroom at McKinley or a third grade classroom at Reagan Elementary. And they will go once a week and spend an hour with the students in that class. When we first began this program 23 years ago, we call it Sooner Big Sis, we worried that we might be missing a large degree of the population because there are more elementary schools in Norman, Oklahoma than we have players on our roster. And if we can't be at every single elementary school, are we shortchanging people? And if we can't be in every classroom at every school, how is that fair if Reagan Elementary gets one player for their third grade class? I found out real quickly, however, that the relationships that they build grow really deep. And instead of just being a sprinkling across the surface, our young athletes were making impactful relationships with students in these classes. I still have a letter in a file in my office from the father of a young boy who was in the second grade at Washington Elementary in Norman. And he said that he could not get his son to go to school. He would dress him for school, and he would go to school and hide out. He would not stay at school. So truancy was a huge problem. And he would not want to get dressed, and he would cry, and he didn't want to go to school, and he hated school. Except on Wednesdays, he got to school with no problem. He got up early, he got dressed, he couldn't wait to go to school. And finally, at parent-teacher conference, the father asked the teacher, "What do you guys do on Wednesdays? Is it taco day or what in the world? It's the only day my son wants to go to school." Miss Davis thought for a second, and she said, "That's the day Lanisha Caulfield comes, one of our basketball players. He loved basketball, and he could not wait for Niche to come to his classroom." Well, long story short, over the period of a year of connecting with Niche on Wednesdays, the little boy figured out how to love school. And the letter from the father was so thankful that I made a decision right there and then, no matter how many people said, "You need to spread them all across the town. They need to be in every school. You got to touch everybody." I knew that the depth of the relationships was going to be transformational for some kids. So that's what we do. We have a student in a classroom, one of our students in a classroom for an entire year every season. So it starts there with community service, with being involved, with reaching out. Another thing that our players do is they give of their cost of attendance. You guys know what cost of attendance is? I can educate you a little bit on this today. I was talking to one of my players this morning at 7 a.m. workouts, and she said she had to do a persuasive speech as one of her finals. I asked her what her topic was, and she said, should collegiate athletes, be paid to play? And I said, oh, very common discussion these days, a hot topic. What do you think? And she said, "Oh, I don't know. We kind of are." And I said, "You're exactly right. You are. Because there's this thing known as cost of attendance now, which in addition to student athletes' room and board and tuition, they get a monthly check that allows them to live like a person who might have a part-time job while they're in school. And so this notion of pay for play has become a really, really hot topic. And with our student athletes, when they come to participate on a campus like the University of Oklahoma, their job is to perform. Their job is to perform without question. And yet they have a very large platform. And so as they struggle with this idea of should we be paid, should we not be paid, then there are lots of hot topics that pop up as a result of that. Now, my student athlete that came in and was talking about that this morning, she was distraught about, what am I going to do? How am I going to take the stage? What am I going to tell about this? And part of training our young student athletes is preparing them for those opportunities to share on such socially hot topics. That's one of the things that community service and that involvement in life beyond the lines of the basketball court leads to. With our student athletes on, I want to take it from community service down to what we do in our practices. One of the things that we reward with our players, if you throw a pass to the guy who scores it, we want the guy who scores it to point to the guy who passed it to him. That's a John Woodenism in this book that we're giving to the school right here. That recognizes that we are all important and that it is selfless. If a player on our team takes a charge, everybody on the team stands up and claps because it's the most selfless act that there is in all of basketball. Our bench is involved in everything that we do, and we show clips of that in the film room. And so we're driving those beliefs and behaviors of our culture, not only through our community service and the outside realm of our program, but through what we reward and what we recognize internally within our program. Last piece of that, what we do in our teaching and our methodology is we really try to design opportunities for our players to develop those decision-making muscles. Those things that I talked about earlier that just haven't had the opportunity because of the way our world is right now to actually be developed. Everything that we do has a decision-making component. Everything that we do puts them in a position to where they have to make choices, and so they build those internal muscles. We ask a ton of questions. What did you notice about that? What would you do differently next time? Why did you make the decision that you made? All those things activate that process of individual thinking. And the last thing that we do in those environments is I put them in positions where they have to lead. Teach this drill, pick this team, decide what we do here. And it's amazing how our young people are uncomfortable with that scenario. And so it's our charge as basketball coaches and in our environment, it's our charge to build an opportunity for our young people to grow in those spaces in which they are deficient. That's what we do. That's what we are assigned to do. That's what we are required to do. And if we do that in a good way, then ultimately our players not only develop as elite competitors, but hopefully they develop as balanced individuals as well. Now, I do have to go into, my goodness, my clock's ticking. I have to go into a quick infomercial here on some folks that I have joining my team because one of our incoming freshmen is from Holland Hall High School. Anybody out here seen Gabby Gregory play? I got an ooh, yeah. Okay. She is one of only 8 players in Oklahoma women's basketball history to score 2,500 points and get 1,000 rebounds. She is the Gatorade Player of the Year. This is our 3rd consecutive Oklahoma Gatorade Player of the Year signee. She is the USA Today Oklahoma Women's Basketball Player of the Year. Tulsa, I could go on, Tulsa World Player of the Year. I could go on with all those stats. She's good. That's what that means. She can score it, she can rebound it, and one of the things that I love most about Gabby is her competitive nature. She is tough as nails, will fight you, and is a believer. I watched her for the last 2 years in the state tournament, absolutely will her team, who probably shouldn't have won games that they won, to winning and moving forward. She is just a kid that refuses to lose, and I'm very excited to be adding her to our roster. We have an Australian post player. Her name is Chloe Bloom. She inspired me to change the accent on my Siri so that it's Australian. It's just, you know, it just sounds so much better than Southern Oklahoma drawl. I don't know. We're excited about Chloe, and then also Liz Scott, who unfortunately tore her ACL in her first scrimmage of her senior season this fall. So she missed her entire senior year, which was heartbreaking for her, her family, her coach, I'm sure her team, and us as well. Hopefully she's on the mend, and we feel like she'll be full strength when she gets here in June. But real excited about her. Liz is a 6'2", power forward. If you want to put a kid in a box, you know, people put numbers on kids. She's a 1, she's a 2, she's a 3, she's a 4. They put them in little boxes. I don't know what she is. She's a really good basketball player. She's explosive. She can jump. She can really pass. She's a strong, instinctive rebounder. Good defender. I think she's going to be a real asset and will elevate our athleticism as well. So we're very excited about those additions. We return a team that was one of the youngest teams in America last year. We had 7 freshmen on our roster, only 2 seniors, no juniors. So this year's team will have 3 freshmen, 3 juniors, the rest are sophomores, and no seniors. So we'll be young once again. However, we return almost all of our scoring. I think it's 97.3% of our scoring from last year, and we were 3rd in the Big 12 Conference in scoring, averaging 73 points per game. So we can score it. You don't have to worry about that. We're going to be able to score it. You might want to be concerned about how well we guard. We are going to work on that. Definitely that was our Achilles heel this year, but for young teams, that's typically the case. There were 2 things, I'm talking really fast because I want to open it up for questions before you have to go. 2 things that I think anchored us a little last year, and anchored not in a positive way, but kind of held us back like a sandbag might. And that's turnovers and the way we perform defensively. Turnovers happen in all kinds of shapes, sizes, and ways, but they really only happen for 2 reasons. Lack of skill or lack of trust. And the lack of trust might be trusting yourself in your decision making. It might be trusting your teammate. It might be trusting the offense, but they really only happen for those 2 reasons. And both of those things get immeasurably better as a result of freshmen now being sophomores. Just age takes care of a ton of that. Now, trust me, you have to get in the gym and practice your handles and all that stuff, but age and time and experience helps those 2 things dramatically. We finished 3rd in the Big 12 Conference in scoring, and we averaged 19 turnovers a game. At one point, the Thunder had 15 last night, and I was like, oh my gosh. It kind of made me feel a little bit better. They're getting paid millions of dollars. So there was kind of a quasi-feel-good underneath all that. But just think how many points we would score if we didn't turn it over 19 times. It would be incredible. So we've got guys who are skilled, who can put the ball in the basket, tremendous three-point shooter, third best three-point shooter in the country, is just a true freshman. Just makes about 4 a game, and that's with people following her around all the time and standing inside of her jersey. So we have some talented young kids, and we're excited about all of that coming back. The defensive part of it, so much of that for a young team also hinges on trust. That'll be the second time I've said that word this morning. Trust. Belief that your teammates are going to be where they're supposed to be. Belief that they'll be there. If you happen to fail, there's going to be somebody there to bail you out. Again, a skill that is enhanced by a freshman growing into a sophomore. So obviously, there's 2 areas where we can improve dramatically and make an emphatic imprint on our season next year by getting older, but also by buying in to the idea of guarding people the way we need to guard them. So we're very excited. We have a crazy pre-conference schedule, really, really challenging once again. That's kind of typical for us. And then obviously the Big 12 is what it is, and you gotta find a way to beat all the giants from Baylor, and that's on the docket. That's on the agenda for us. So I'm very, very excited. And just one last thing, and then I'll open it up for questions. I know we have Fast Break Club members perhaps in the arena or in the room today. We have maybe season ticket holders, maybe members of our Sooner Stilettos, which is our professional women's booster organization. If you are, thank you. Thank you for making the trek down the turnpike to Norman, Oklahoma. I know it's tough on weekday games, and I know sometimes our game times don't make it easy. An 8 o'clock tip when you live in Tulsa and you got to drive to Norman is tough. I get that, but we appreciate you. Thank you for supporting us. And if you're interested in being involved in any of our booster organizations, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, that was a really fast infomercial. All right. Now, if you have any questions, I would love to take questions at this time. Please walk to the microphone in the middle of the room, and so that everybody can hear you, and I'll take your questions. Now, don't everybody ask at once.
You mentioned about the transfer portal and like 1.5.
Times two.
Like 1.5 players per school. How has that affected you both positively and also getting players to come in that have transferred from other schools?
That's a great question. I'm going to assume that was yours as well. Okay, this will take a few minutes, so that's all right. I'll be completely candid with you today. I'm not a fan of the transfer portal. I'm not a fan of the idea that you go somewhere and you decide that the grass must be greener somewhere else, so you'll just go there. The grass is greenest where you water it, period. We have not taken part in the transfer situation much at all. It's partly the reason why we don't have a senior class this year. A couple of years ago, we had some transfers. As a result of that, I took a stand and said, I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to go out and find somebody at the last minute, because recruiting is about relationships, all right? We can back up in this and say the recruiting process is about vetting and about finding out if the people that you want to play for you have the same values, beliefs, and directions as you do. You want it to be a win-win. If you're not believing in the same things, the way the game should be played, the way you should behave, the standards by which you should conduct yourself, then it's not ever going to be a very good fit. Well, recruiting is hard. It's hard to figure that out. You have a limited number of interactions with these student athletes. Student athletes have all kinds of voices in their head, some who are about what's best for them and some who are about what's best for the person, not the student athlete. So there's a lot of noise that you have to filter through. It's hard to get to them. And so sometimes it's very difficult to ascertain if your values and beliefs and standards align. That being said, when you can do that, typically things work beautifully, regardless of playing time. Kids always want to play. Kids who transfer now aren't transferring because they don't get to play. They're transferring because they want to be somewhere else, because they think it's better, nicer, whatever the case might be. Most of the kids who are in the transfer portal are kids who played a ton on their respective teams. So it's not about what you think it might be about. So if you take a transfer, my point being, if you take a transfer, you have a really squished amount of time in which to vet all those beliefs, behaviors, practices, standards. It's like trying to build a relationship on steroids. Like you got 3 weeks, ready, go. It's very, very difficult. So we have in large part steered away, and we have mostly for the last 2 decades signed what we call career commits, kids who are at the University of Oklahoma for 4 years. As of late, we've had a few transfers, and so we are sort of being pushed into a situation to be able to look at that a little more delicately, perhaps. We are definitely looking for an opportunity to sign in the late period, which would mean this would be a transfer. A transfer could also be a junior college student athlete as well, not just transferring from a 4-year school. And so we're looking at that a little bit, but the process is a bit unnerving, and I don't mind telling you that, because everything is sped up and there's such necessity. There is, and I'll throw this in real quickly, there is a caveat that's just kind of becoming vogue in women's basketball now that hasn't been, and it has played a huge role in the development of men's basketball rosters, and that's the graduate transfer. The kid who has finished their 4 years, but they have 1 more year of eligibility, they have a degree in hand, and they can go somewhere else and play. And the advantages of that obviously being an opportunity to showcase their skills and maybe improve their ability to play overseas or play in the WNBA. That has been much more prevalent in men's basketball than it has been in women, but I've seen more graduate transfers in the women's game this year than ever before. So that's sort of a piece of it as well. If you follow our men this past year, you saw that we had at least 2, maybe 3 graduate transfers on our men's basketball roster. And sometimes those add an element of maturity, experience. You know, they're older, obviously. You compare any 18-year-old freshman coming in with a 22-year-old who's played 4 years of college basketball, the maturity level is incredibly different. So there are obviously some advantages to signing grad transfers, and they're becoming more prevalent in the women's game. Why do you think they haven't been as prevalent in the women's game as they have been in the men's? What's your guess? Come on, you got to talk too. All the men think they're going to the NBA. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, first of all, you can take the WNBA salary, beginning salaries, take the ending salary. Shoot, take Diana Taurasi's salary and compare it to anybody in the NBA, and it's not even close. It's not even a thimble of what it is. So the lucrative nature from a financial standpoint is completely different. Most female athletes, when they have finished their undergraduate degree, are ready to go tackle the next phase of their life. They're just ready. They might want to get married, they might be ready to have kids, they might have a career path. They're ready to do the next thing. And so not as many of them want that extra year to try to parlay. And the spots, the availability for them at the professional level, not anything like it is for the NBA. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges when you compare the two. I could go on a bit of a diatribe about how we could learn from men's basketball. If we pay a little bit better attention, we as a sport could learn a little bit more from them and take some better detours, make some better decisions. Instead, we oftentimes follow them, even when they step in a pothole, and then we go, oh, that looks really fun, let's step in a pothole too, and that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I'll take one more question, and then we got to go. Okay, you two can fight for it. Maybe you could put a bucket on your head and walk down, and I'll throw some money out there.
You have a wonderful emphasis on character development. How common is that, or how unusual is that in your field?
Thank you for that, first of all. I do think it's becoming more common. I do think that there's a rising recognition and awareness out there that sports is a tremendous vehicle for teaching character development. Maybe the last bastion, it could be. In our public school systems, it's a way for kids to learn how to be selfless and to be a part of a team and to cooperate and collaborate, and sports is a perfect breeding ground for that. So I think it's becoming more and more intentional and more programmed. Hopefully not just programmed, but actually taught and executed. So thank you for that. I appreciate that very much.
Just real quick, I've got a freshman college soccer player. Have you ever thought about coaching some soccer?
Well, you know, it is just basketball with your feet. Totally. totally basketball with your feet. I love that. We score a lot more points than soccer does, though. I want to thank you so much for your attention today. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast to be in Tulsa.
Thank you, Coach Cole, for a great presentation. A book recognizing today's program will be presented to our partner in education school, Sylvia Clinton Elementary School. This week's book is Inch and Miles, The Journey to Success by Coach John Wooden. Special thanks to this week's meeting sponsors, Spirit Bank, Rhonda Hayes, Southern Hills Vet, Rod Robards, Key Personnel, Stan McCabe, Upshaw Johnson, Katie Johnson. Condolences to Rotarian Jeff Smith on the loss of his father. Services are being held today, and our Rotary Cares Committee sent a sympathy card on the club's behalf. Again, the Rotary Plaza Maintenance Committee will meet today in room 233. The Rotary Plaza Maintenance Committee is responsible for the ongoing upkeep of the Rotary Plaza on Williams Center Green. The $1 million gift of public art was presented to the citizens of Tulsa as the club's official centennial project. It was dedicated on April 25th, 2012. The committee continues to monitor the condition of the plaza and work closely with the Greens management, the Tulsa Parking Authority, and Central Parking. Volunteers are needed to clean the Rotary Plaza on Saturday, May 4th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. If you're unable to attend the meeting today in room 233, but would like to volunteer for that cleaning event on May 4th, please contact Tim Knoll. Upcoming programs. Next Wednesday, May 1st, Barry Henson will be our speaker. On May 8th, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Darling will talk about his book, 24 Hours Inside the President's Bunker, 9/11/01, the White House. So let's not lose sight of that grand Rotary International vision. Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Please note that our new member, John Hamill, will be in our guest table area in the foyer as you exit. Please take a moment to help welcome John to our Rotary Club of Tulsa family. And with that, we are adjourned.